This year, with tons of tournaments and Valve point fever, feels like complete chaos. There's no balance in the tournament calendar, rankings are all over the place, and a team can be removed from a region just because another team asked for it. We're still far from the kind of order you see in traditional sports. These are the words of Alexei OverDrive Biryukov, a man whose nickname is familiar to nearly every Counter-Strike esports fan. And he's got a point. Chaos, tournaments one after another, strange rules, and a general sense of oversaturation. So it's the perfect time to sort all this out. What's really going on? How it affects the scene and the viewers? Before we begin, it's the perfect time to remind you that the case opening simulator is already available in the extension and is constantly being updated. There, you can spin one case at a time or test your luck by opening 100 cases at once, and then check the stats in the loot list or on the graph. I was really lucky to get an expensive knife from my second 100. You can see for yourself, the chances for that are extremely low. Let's start with the basics. What kinds of tournaments are there in CS? There are several ways to categorize them. The first is by location, either online or LAN. This one's pretty straightforward. An online tournament is played from home, while a LAN tournament is held at a physical venue. There's also a hybrid format, where for example, the group stage is played online, and teams gather in person for the playoffs. By the way, LAN stands for Local Area Network, meaning all devices are connected to the same network. What's the point? It removes the ping factor. Everyone has the same connection and response time, so conditions are fair and equal for all players. The second categorization is by tournament format. Group stages vary, round robin, Swiss system, or GSL, the format used at majors. Sometimes there's no group stage at all and the tournament jumps straight into playoffs. And even playoffs differ, either single elimination or double elimination, meaning with or without a lower bracket. Then there are match formats. Best of 1, best of 3, and best of 5. The number tells you how many maps are played max and how many you need to win to take the series. The third classification is by prestige. You can judge this by a few factors. First, prize pool. The more money at stake, the more teams want in and the stronger they are. Prestige is also tied to history. Take IM Katowice for example, it's been around for over a decade. Winning it is more meaningful to some players than even a major. Plus, it has a solid prize pool, so its popularity is easy to understand. A fourth category appeared recently, ranked versus unranked tournaments. What does that mean? In summer 2024, Valve introduced the VRS system, Valve Regional Standings, sparking endless debate in the community. This system essentially created a new, more structured competitive ecosystem. Now, anyone wanting to run a CS tournament must get a license. There are two types: a limited game tournament license for small events, and an expanded license for big tournaments. Tournament operators now must allocate invites based on VRS rankings. There is a workaround, but it comes with major restrictions. Prize pool can't exceed $100,000. The total annual prize money from one organizer's unranked events can't go over $250,000. And since $250,000 is around the average prize pool of a Tier 2 tournament, it's clear that only Tier 2 or Tier 3 events can run unranked. But there's a catch. Teams often don't want to play these unranked tournaments. Why? Because of VRS again. Organizations need points to climb the ranking and get direct invites to top events or closed qualifiers. Points are gained or lost based on match results. The higher ranked your opponent, the more points you earn by beating them. So if you're a strong Tier 2 team, you can't just farm plus 25 MMR from random top 100 squads. That's actually a good thing. But if the ranking didn't exist before, how did Valve create it? They used results from the past 6 months and prize earnings to calculate it. The more prize money you earned and the more money your beaten opponents had earned, the more base points you got. On paper, this sounds solid. So why the hate? There are a few reasons. First, despite a seemingly decent evaluation method, many considered the ranking flawed. The top 10 or even top 20 made sense, but beyond that, things got weird. A great example: the sudden rise of the women's team Imperial. Since the rankings included both men's and women's teams, and Imperial's female roster was the strongest in the women's scene, they got a high VRS ranking, higher than their org's men's roster even. But once they actually played against men's teams at big events, they lost. Not without highlights, not 13-0 every time, but clearly and convincingly. Still, thanks to their base points and some trickery, they attended multiple big tournaments. What trickery? They skipped smaller tournaments to avoid risking their points. In the VRS system, you can skip a match and take a default loss and not lose any points. So yes, teams have intentionally forfeited matches just to protect their ranking. And if you thought that's the end of VRS issues, you'd be wrong. Since VRS is region-based, Europe, Asia, Americas, a question arose. What about teams with equal numbers of players from two different regions? Originally, teams could choose their region. This led to scandals. For example, the Russian team Hotu had 3 Yakutians and 2 Kazakhs and played in Asia. But after a complaint from the Mongolian Esports Federation, Valve removed them from Asian qualifiers. Eventually, Valve fixed it. If a team has equal numbers from 2 regions, they must play in the region with more major slots, meaning the stronger one. And the final criticism of VRS, it favors those who play a lot. This especially affects Tier 2 and Tier 3, but Tier 1 teams aren't immune either. On the one hand, it makes sense. Play more, earn more. In the short term, sure, that works. But long-term, not so much. Tournaments are non-stop. Even top teams risk burnout, which affects results over time. And that brings us to the main question. Does the scene really need this many tournaments? On the one hand, more tournaments equals more money in the ecosystem equals growth. And we're not just talking Tier 1. Tier 3 is full of events too. But on the other hand, oversaturation. There aren't just a lot of tournaments, there are way too many. Let's look at a small stretch of top-tier events this year. PGL Bucharest, April 6th to 13th. RMR Qualifiers, April 14th to 17th. IEM Melbourne, April 21 to 27. Blast Rivals Spring, April 30th to May 1st. PGL Astana, May 10 to 18. IEM Dallas, May 19th to 25th. Between some of these, only one day of rest. Others, barely better. As a result, teams skipped entire events, like PGL Astana, because they'd literally arrive in Dallas on the day the tournament started. That's halfway across the world. Jet lag, exhaustion, no time to adapt. Some teams still went for it, like Aurora from Turkey. They did make playoffs in Astana, but crashed out immediately. Even in groups, their performance wasn't great. Dallas also featured Furia, Astana's finalist. They didn't even make it out of groups. Yes, the rest of the year's schedule looks a bit saner, but one-day breaks are still a thing, so like it or not, some events will feel incomplete, because some teams will opt out for rest and proper prep. And there's another side to all this, the viewers. Aren't they getting tired of non-stop CS? Statistically, no. Viewership is stable, even higher than in 2024. Back then, the average viewer count was under 200,000 and peaks were under 1 million. Now, the average is nearly 300,000, and the Austin Major peaked at 1.5 million. Tier 2 events? Around 10,000 average, with peaks over 100,000. So where does the fatigue talk come from? Mostly from hardcore fans who watch everything, and there aren't that many of them. Vitality's current dominance doesn't help. Every event feels like Groundhog Day. Bees win again. At the same time, new viewers are joining, watching the scene with fresh enthusiasm. But if this pattern continues, fatigue will eventually spread. And we've already seen it with Dota. Tournaments non-stop for years led to audience decline and stream viewership drop. People got tired of watching the same teams face each other for the 20th time. Yes, Dota is still popular, but not like it used to be. So what can we wish for CS's professional scene? Maybe just slow down a bit. Not down to 2 tournaments a year, but enough to leave breathing room between them. Then we'll go back to looking forward to every event like a holiday, watching with hype, without wondering, wait, why is there another one already? This was Steam Inventory Helper. See you next time.